I've heard that theorized. I don't know that it's actually been accomplished in practice.
I've played with a lot of magnets. One of my biggest things is I love playing with magnets and little mini electrical motors with my kids because it's great science projects. So I have a ton of neo magnets and all that other stuff and everything, and I haven't found any difference with magnets separating them. I've tried 50,000 which ways the other just to throw a magnet on it because I love playing with magnets, and I haven't found anything.
Zero, I asked you a question that has really confounded me and that no one's really answered. You know, when Denny Klein in his video demonstrated using HHO to cut metals, he didn't have to do anything to go from a metal that required 300 degrees to a metal that required 4,000 degrees.
Right.
What? That is called a scalar property, right?
Yeah, that confounds the rest of us too. I got to tell you, the flame literally adapts to the material that you're cutting.
Isn't that kind of the potential that the gas is carrying with it, the potential of the metal? The metal maybe has more resistance and burns quicker.
I don't know, because you can cut ceramic.
David Berger.
Yeah, I've taken a piece of charcoal and burnt a hole through it, and that's the hardest thing to even touch.
You can cut ceramic. You can cut brick. You can weld.
When you braze copper, it's so clean, no dirty, no soot on it. You know what I mean? It's amazing. Glass just looks beautiful with it.
Because that's a pinpoint focused flame. So you're concentrating all of your BTU energy into a very small area. But
like
the
a laser.
Right, but the total release of energy still is not more than what it took to put in. In other words,
When the metal heats to 4,000 degrees, it must have some.
No, actually, listen to this. I've taken an oxygen acetylene cutting torch and I've taken a half-inch piece of plate metal,
I think the answer
steel,
is-
right? And I've scored a plate through it, you know, with the acetylene, right? You know, just to make a groove. And I've taken the oxygen and hydrogen torch that I've made, right, and scored a line through that. Didn't cut all the way through it. I threw it in my backyard just to see what kind of rusting, habits it would. The oxygen acetylene was just corroded. That patch that I cut with the hydrogen was just so clean. It was unreal.
really,
So that tells you something about the properties of the metals.
It's changing the molecular structure. It's doing it.
You know, I think that a very important answer lies in that particular property of hydrogen, and somehow expanding it and being able to scale it in motors and in other ways. I think the key is there. My instincts tell me that very, very strongly.
My opinion is, I don't think we're going to get away from gasoline unless we redesign our engines for hydrogen. You know, but if we can take gasoline and we can make it go 5-to-1, and it's all about vapors. And there's a perfect little example. You can take a gas can or a bottle or something like this, right? And you put a hole in one side and you put a hole on the other side and you put the line in there almost like a paraphernalia piece of bong or something. You know what I mean? Best way to explain it. All right? And when you blow bubbles into there, right, and that other end when it leaves out, right, it's mixing with your oxygen that you breathe off, but it's also mixing with the gas vapors. I've made small engines run just from the gas vapors. You know, so that's where we're going to have to really get into it. We're going to have to take our gasoline and really squeeze it out as much as we can.
I've run my car on fumes many times. Sometimes I didn't make it to the gas station.
Like a gas saver goes, is it 7,000 or something like that?
Say again?
You know, 7,000. It does the same thing as HHO. You fuel it into your intake manifold and it brings the vapors.
Right. When it gets to your cylinders, when you get to your cylinders, you don't put any gasoline in there. It's all vapor. You know what I mean? It doesn't even get a chance to be going in there wet.
Because it goes wet, it comes out wet.
Right. Because you're running too lean or too rich.
right.
So I think that's where we're going to have to go.
Go back and look at Popular Campus. Smokey Zurich was one of the 5 guys that designed the small block Chevy, and I happen to know 2 of the guys personally. What they did is they built an engine back in the 60s that was what they called the hot air engine. And it ran on air intake temperatures over 200 degrees. And everybody at GM and everybody said, can't do, the gas is going to explode and the motor's going to come apart and all this other stuff. It worked phenomenal. They got almost 200 miles to the gallon of gas on it. It's in Popular Mechanics. You have to go in the archives and dig it out.
I read that article. That's what got me started.
That built it. And basically what they do is they use gasoline, vaporize it, mix it in an extremely lean mixture with extremely hot air, and then inject it into the motor. And I mean, that stuff's already been done, it's been proven. I mean, it's everything that the Canadians have probably gone back and looked at his stuff because the patents have long run out on it. But that's basically what he did. And he was showing that once it's fully atomized and at high temp, it's a much more efficient reaction.
Right.
And in chemistry, as you raise temperature, you raise the activity of the reaction taking place. So he explains the whole thing. There's all sorts of great photos in there.
What year was that?
What's that?
What year was that, Popular Mechanics?
Sometime in the 60s. Now you're picking my brain hard
Oh,
there.
well, just
the date, but it was somewhere in the early to mid 60s. I would say somewhere between probably 62 and but he was one of the 5 guys, one of the other guys, like old train Cam I know, and a couple of the other guys. But those are the 5 guys that developed the small block Chevy for General Motors. And they did a lot of very interesting engine takeoffs back then at GM's expense. And they looked at it, and the engine ran fine. They ran on the dyno for days. And it was what they called the hot air engine. I mean, because they
Why
were
build
taking
a
the
car with an
exhaust
abundant
and
fuel
wrapping it-
source? Lock it up, hide it away, you know what I mean? Don't let the people know.
So, I mean, that's already been asked out there. I mean, you can dig that up.
Is that the same thing?
It's similar, yeah. I mean, they get the fuel extremely hot. And, but they vaporized it, and I think that the air intake was over 200 degrees. It was 200, 240 degrees, if I remember right.
Right, to assist in the vaporization of the fuel?
Right.
Right.
Right, and what's the temperature your radiator? About 200, 180, 220 when it gets real hot out? Yeah, think about that.
This is the gentleman who came up with the, what he's calling the water ion technology in Sarasota that'll be announced, I guess, 2 weeks from now. Is that correct?
It's not launched, that's on November 1st this month. We've been lots of working with another chemist for over 3 years from last July. So we're very happy to be able to advance the research and development.
Wateriontechnology.com.